it came quite clear to me over a few specific episodes of my life that community and belonging are not the same thing. And someone may need to hear this today. Community and belonging are not the same thing. And this can be quite a painful realization when community shifts.
Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all-around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now, in the midst of the madness. So, let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today, with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. I'm going to be honest, friend. I was putting off recording this conversation because I don't know if I've caught it, but we're going to start. We're going to see where we go. As per usual, one of the things that we do in here is we kind of live it live. It's all just as the Lord's leading. I'm really trying to stay teachable, stay open to what He wants me to talk to you about. Now, we're going to dig in a little bit. I don't know if you haven't been in here before or you just haven't heard it clearly expressed. I'm going to lean into the core values that govern everything that happens in Overwhelmed to Overcomer. And we're going to dig deeply into one specific one, which you may have noticed the title is belonging. So the 3 core values of this podcast are belonging, stewardship, and courage. Belonging with and to the Father. From that place of solidness, we get to belong with ourselves. We get to belong with others. We're going to dig into that today. What does that really look like, belonging? And we're going to dig into one of my favorite thinkers, Brené Brown, and a book that she wrote called Braving the Wilderness. Now, I had on my notes to do this podcast episode like 6 months ago, right after I read the book, but I just needed to marinate a bit. And now it's time. I'm going to touch really briefly the other 2 core values, stewardship, Matthew 25. We come back here again and again to the parable of the talents. What will we do with our one sweet life? We did a whole episode just titled that. What will you do with your one sweet life? It's a poem. And it's just a call to capture these moments, these days, these weeks, these months, these years that we're given, and recognize I've been given something from the Father. I've been given this time. I've been given these opportunities. I've been given this knowledge. I've been given this experience. I've been given these losses and these joys and these people. What will I do with my one sweet life? Ultimately, what we do, as we know from the parable of the talents, comes back to how we see Him. If we, like the 1 talent servant did, know Him to be a hard man, that's in quotes because that's not really who He is, but that's how the 1 talent servant perceived Him. We're going to hide away what we've been given because we're not going to be willing to risk it. But when we trust the Father's goodness, we step out and things happen because He creates much fruit from our little effort. And then lastly is courage. And I'm in the middle of reading a book that you wouldn't expect to necessarily cover this. It's called it's Nancy Pearcey. I think it's called Toxic Masculinity. I'll make sure it's right in the show notes. But she just glances over this idea of courage, and I think what she's saying is courage is submission. So we're going to come back there another time. I'm just putting a pin in that to say, holy cow, I think my mind just got blown. But I want to say this one thing, which has absolutely nothing to do with our actual topic, but it's too good not to share. What that little passage clarified for me in a big old book about a whole lot of stuff, really just talking about the gift of true masculinity as God intended it and how it actually can shift culture and family and all of these wonderful things. What that insight about courage showed me is I've struggled with this concept of courage because it's a core value in this podcast, in life, You got to have guts. I literally have Dare Greatly tattooed on my arm. Funnily enough, on my forearm, so you can't see it unless you're me. But it's so it's funny that there's a tattoo on courage that's like basically hidden. Nonetheless, I'm the one that needs to remember. Um, this idea of daring greatly, I always thought it was an out movement. You got to go forth. You got to conquer, you got to move. And that's how I lived my life until, as many of you know, this past year was a very humbling one for me. And life got really quiet and really small in a good way. Small, small through depth, deep, not wide. And this passage clarified that it takes courage simply to do what the Lord, like that's the guts. The guts is to do what the Lord has called you to do, even when it's little. And you might be like, obviously, Anna, but it's new to me. So there you go. Maybe it's an aha for someone else. Okay, coming back to belonging. This is where we're digging in today. It came quite clear to me over a few specific episodes of my life that community and belonging are not the same thing. And someone may need to hear this today. Community and belonging are not the same thing. And this can be quite a painful realization when community shifts. We leave that church and all of a sudden we're not invited to the parties anymore, the women's gatherings or the potlucks or the things that aren't necessarily church activities. We don't get a call anymore. I remember when I was a lawyer and left law to have our son, who just turned 12, by the way, so it's been just over 12 years since I left the practice of law. I worked really hard to come back up to see my buddies because, gosh, we spent every day together. We were up all hours of the night working on deals together. We spent more time with our colleagues than with our families by a long shot. And so I made the effort to come up and be available for lunch, and they call last minute and cancel, or they wouldn't be able to come, or it would be four of us that were supposed to go and only one would make it. And that had happened with other people, but once I'd left, I was like, well, I'm making the effort. Surely it'll come together. And it took a little time for me to realize, oh, we weren't friends. We enjoyed each other. It was a great working relationship, but it was different than friendship. And for people who are highly relational, that can be a tricky thing to catch. So what is belonging? So Brené Brown talks in Braving the Wilderness about how she encountered this quote by Maya Angelou, who is like one of her favorite guides, thinkers. She just has aligned with everything that Maya Angelou has said, with one exception. Maya Angelou did, and I'm gonna have to read it to you. Okay, so Maya Angelou did an interview with Bill Moyers in 1973, and she said the following: "You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, the reward is great." Well, Brené Brown took this and wrestled with it for quite some time. She'd take it out, she'd put it back, she'd take it out, she'd put it back. And what caught her, and this may be resonant for you as well, is we know how essential belonging is. We feel the longing, the ache when we're left outside of something. And yet here Maya Angelou is saying freedom comes from not belonging. When you no longer belong, you belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You're truly free. Now, as people of faith, I feel it's imperative. I'm just going to categorically say, I reject that the end goal is belonging. So Bill Moyers kind of digs into this and he says, so you don't belong to anyone? And she says, I belong to Maya. And I would call that a tragedy. Honestly, I would call that a tragedy, that that's where it stops. That the end goal of life is to belong only with and to yourself, because we were made to belong to someone. But I'm going to challenge, somebody needs this. I know, because I think it's such a deep struggle in us, because we want so deeply to belong beyond the heart to heart with the Father, because I had a friend who used to say, I just want someone with skin on. When we walk into those rooms and we feel separate, it is so painful. We have to live our lives with people. So we want to have a place there. We want to have a safe place to land. Or we can walk into the room. It's the Cheers experience. Everybody knows your name. And this is why we're drawn to the shows that we're drawn to, right? We see this played out. Friends and Cheers, and I'm trying to think of, the Wonder Years, right? He belongs with Winnie. And then I remember okay, spoiler, if you haven't watched the Wonder Years and you don't want to know how it ends, first of all, how did you manage that in the past 40 years? Because it's been around forever. But just like 10 seconds forward, at the end, he and Winnie break up and he's married to someone else. And I'm like, what is this? You belong together. So my friends all knew Anna wants to see the movies where they kiss and it fades to black. And we can just pretend it's going to be that way forever. Belonging. Oh, we want it so much. And we tend to overestimate how much other people are experiencing that rare gift. We see the brunches, we see the Facebook pictures, we see the reels, we see the highlights of everybody else's community, their gatherings, right? But Brené Brown says something so compelling. She says what she found in her research is that the opposite of belonging is not being excluded, it's fitting in. It's fitting in. Because this is where you have to compromise. If you only fit in and you don't belong, then you have to assess and strategize about what you say, how you dress, how you show up, what you talk about, who you like. And I'm going to be really honest. There have been, and you can hear it, especially in the earlier episodes of this podcast before I decided I'm not doing that anymore. I know in my circle of Southern conservative Christianity who it is acceptable to quote and to like. And you can hear me in the early days even talking about, well, I don't know that we really align with the same theology. I don't really know. Obviously, I disagree with this person on some points. Why? Because you can't even read certain books or like certain authors or share certain content because they don't quite line up with the perspective that the set agrees with. And I'll be honest, like yeah, it's still true. If we dumped out on the desk the theology of all the people that I quote in here, it's not going to line up. They still have great things to say. They still have such rich wisdom that the Lord in his common grace has granted to them. Why not reclaim it for the kingdom and fortify the believers? But it was tricky. I could feel it. I could feel that check of like, am I gonna lose my belonging? But it's not belonging, it's fitting in. Right? And so here's what I have to offer to you. We're gonna go to a text because we just got to sit somewhere. We got to sit on some Bible, okay? So in 1 Corinthians 12:12, Paul says this: for just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with great honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect. whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the great honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it, and God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts, and I will show you a still more excellent way. You know what he goes into next, right? The passage on love. Did you catch what he said about the weaker members and the greater members? And I'm thinking, I'm like, what's the natural, picture that he's painting? Is he talking about, how we cover like parts of our body for modesty, or that are maybe like softer areas, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what correlation he's drawing. I'm sure the commentaries could speak to it, but the key here is we're all different, obviously, right? And this passage specifically speaks to gifts, but I think it's fair to say that we are going to have different and this is part of what fortifies and informs our gifts, right? We're gonna have different perspectives. We're gonna have different understandings. Like I have really found a lot of value digging into end times eschatology and just trying to understand the different perspectives. And one thing that's really interesting about our times, and this is extrapolated from Gavin Ortlund, who's a theologian I love, and he's referencing the church fathers. So there's the probably, I would say, the predominant end times view in this season in our culture, in our nation, in the South where I live, is dispensationalism, which I don't quite know what the word means, but it's basically the idea that that all the end time stuff, I believe I've got this right. We're waiting on all of it. Everything that's in Revelation, we're waiting on it to happen. The locusts and the sun falling out of the sky and all these things, it hasn't yet happened. This was not the predominant view in the early church fathers for quite some time. The conviction actually was that the first 19-ish chapters of the scriptures of Revelation were referring to the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple in AD 70. And that was like the main perspective. And actually, and it's called partial preterism, and it's a view that I carry. And I'll drop a link to a 2-hour deep dive on Revelation that is fantastic, absolutely awesome, that Gavin Ortlund did. I highly commend it to you. But I say all that to say, it used to drive me bananas that we couldn't land on even where we are in history. Where in Revelation are we actually? Are we at the beginning? Are we towards the end? Like, where are we? And why can't we know that? And I'm going to just posit this to you. I'm going somewhere, I promise. There is something there must be something the Lord values more than being right. Because if what he wanted was for his children to be right, we'd see a lot more uniformity. But here's where we get wrong. We start to assume that because we believe something different than someone else, they're outside the Lord's favor, they're not listening to God, there's a lack of faithfulness, there's a lack of intelligence, there's a lack of discernment, and we start to cast judgments on people who differ. And I'm just going to posit, what if? Just what if? And Lord, help me be seasoned in this. I don't want to overstep. What if it's possible that there is a reason beyond something pejorative, something negative, right and wrong, good and bad, that would lead to the Lord allowing for these variances? What if? What if what he wants is for us to seek to know him, even if we end up in different places? And then, to endeavor to love one another while in these different places. So when we look at this passage of the body, I just want to offer, recognizing it's so important to take the text as it's written. It's written specific, what it specifically talks about is gifts. We're all different. We all have different gifts. But I think it's fair to say that this passage can also be quite informative on how we handle all the other variances with which we are presented, all the denominations, all the differences in perspectives on end times and screens for our children and homeschooling versus private schooling versus public schooling, and what we feed our children and how we discipline our children, right? All the, of course, I'm thinking of all the kid things because of course that's the season that we're knee deep in right now. All of these things we have so much variance on, and I'm going to offer to you, if everybody in your circle has exactly the same perspective on all of these many, many things, is it possible? Is it possible that maybe the circle needs to stretch, or you need to find some variance and learn how to feel safe there? Beth Moore had this great line. She said she was giving a message, and I'm never going to be able to find where she said it because I just like binged her stuff for quite some season. She had an app with all these talks in it. And she said in one of the talks, she was like, I was challenging my Bible study ladies. May we never miss going where God has directed us to go, even if that means this changes, even if that means the group breaks up, there's, somebody leaves, somebody moves somewhere else, whatever it is. May we never hesitate to go where he's leading, because we don't want to miss out on where we are. We don't want to lose the belonging, right? What do we need to be willing to let go of? Where do we need to be willing to look different from those around us? If it's been a little while, literally today, I was digging into something. I was listening to a video and I was like, I think Brian and I might disagree on this one. That's my husband, if you don't know. I think he and I might disagree on this one. And I could feel the discomfort of like, and we've been married for 15 years. We have a wonderful relationship. Of course I can disagree with him, but I could feel the discomfort of being different. And I will tell you, I used to cry out to the Lord, just give me a place. Give me somewhere to belong. Friend, what if it's nowhere? And what if that's what sets us free? Listen, going back to John 15, this is where we live, okay? Because this is the heart of belonging. We are the branch. The branches, the only thing they are utterly connected to is the vine. Okay? We might touch, we might intersect, we might overlap a little bit, but we only belong to the vine. It must be that way. That is source, right? And it can be a beautiful thing when we have those points of intersection with someone else. You too? Oh, I mean, even movies. I even remember traveling overseas, how excited I got just to hear someone speaking English. It doesn't take much when you're in such crazy outside of your box experiences. Even just coming from the same nation is enough sometimes, right? We long for that connection with others. We were built for it, and yet, it cannot be the purpose. We must be willing to be foot, to be hand, to be eye. We must be willing to be fully how he created us to be. And it is going to mean we are going to be at odds, not in dissension. It doesn't have to be conflict, but we must be willing to be other, even in our closest circles. We must be willing to stand separate. Because, and let me just remind you, if you look at the you of 20 years ago, you might not even like you today. Right? The me of 20 years ago would have thought the me of today was ridiculous. Right? Ridiculous, because I've softened. I'm not so judgmental, I'm not so harsh. I'm certainly not so bold and confident in thinking that I know what's going on. Oh, I used to tell people how it was. Whew. And you know what? How much more are we going to be different from those around us? As much as we change in a decade or two, how much more the people who haven't even lived in our own skin and had our experiences. So here's the rub. We need this belonging, and we need it desperately. The Lord knows we were, as Brené Brown would say, wired for connection. It's how he made us to be relational. And yet we must constantly check. Am I like sacrificing? Am I conceding? Am I giving away any ground, any territory the Lord has called me to take? Am I failing to hold my place and say, this is who he's called me to be? Am I kind of detaching from the vine just to stay snuggled up with these folks over here? And maybe I'd ask it even a different way. Where am I doing that? Where am I compromising? Where am I just like choosing not to say something? Right? And I'm watching myself in this complicated political climate. I'm watching myself forum shop, where it's like, oh, somebody that I really align with and respect is saying something that maybe doesn't line up with what I think I should think about this issue. I haven't even looked at it yet. May we be, oh, it feels so stretching sometimes. May we be willing to hold space for multiple perspectives before we just like, this is what it must be because this is who I follow. This is what it must be because these are the good guys. This is what it must be because this is the right side of the political aisle. No. Who's going to get it right? Jesus. Jesus. And you know what I think we do sometimes? And we just, I'm just going to invite you. How do I catch this? Okay. I'm just going to invite you to take a look. How do we know? How do we know the Lord? At the end of the day, how do we really know him? To what degree am I figuring out who God is because of the latest commentator I like listening to? Right? And this is so, I mean, we should feel a holy fear because those people are fallible. And yes, well-intentioned, and I'm sure anointed by the Lord and all of those wonderful things. But we must look full on his wonderful face. And ultimately then, ultimately, at some point, we have to trust the Holy Spirit within us to lead and guide us, to give us divine revelation so that we can live out the life that he has called us to live.
Hey friend, are you looking for a peaceful getaway where you can just breathe? A backdrop to your next hilarious girls' weekend? Or the destination for that crazy family trip? If so, our family would be honored to host you at our sweet retreat, Just Like Paradise. Located a block from the beach in beautiful family and dog-friendly Oak Island, our home is perfect for families, group retreats, or even a solo or couples getaway. You know you need it. After years of praying over this home and asking others to do the same, Peace is just baked into the walls. From the Three Seasons back porch to the fire pit, from the hot tub to the kids' room fully stocked with all the games, we've thought of everything to give you just the getaway you've been looking for. Simply send me a text at 704-810-1181 to skip the fees and enjoy an additional 10% discount on your next stay. Just mention the podcast. I've got you covered. We can't wait to host you at Just Like Paradise.
See, sometimes as believers, I think because we know our sin nature, we want to kind of push back against that Holy Spirit intuition and go, I don't know if I can trust that. And we get into this self-doubt and we start to forum shop and find an expert to tell us the right way, even in the things of God. And ultimately, that's a that's a posture that really the Protestant Reformation, the whole point was, no, divine revelation is a gift from the Lord to all his people. You don't need saints, you don't need a pope, you don't need bishops and all these men of the cloth to tell you what the scriptures say, to tell you how to walk out your salvation. You have the word and you have the Holy Spirit within you. And so, friend, I'm going to invite you to just look to the Lord and go, is this a shift I need to make? Because on the flip side of that, we don't want to be separating ourselves from wisdom, right? The Lord, I love, and this really came home to me when I started reading the Bible through in a year, just kind of eating the word, taking it in big chunks. The Lord is all about proof. Like, here's a witness, here's a witness, here's a witness, here's a witness. The whole Bible is eyewitness testimony of who the Lord is. Again and again and again, proven by blood most of the time. Like, these prophets were martyred. The apostles were martyred. Christ, of course, was crucified. All to prove the veracity of the word. Okay? And so we need to recognize the power of witness. So if you feel the Lord stirring something in you and then you hear it and then you hear it and then you hear it, yeah, like that's probably a nudge from God. Yes, this is the way I want you to move. Yeah, it really is. Yes, it is. If you were wondering, yes, it is. Right? So we need that counsel. We need the circle around us. But let us not outsource and let someone else play Holy Spirit Jr. And let me just submit that if you cannot remember a time in your walk with the Lord where you walked towards something and everyone else was like, are you sure? Ask him. Can we do something just you and I? There's nothing like it. Those moments where you're like, it's just us. It's just you leading me here and me all by myself with you. Friend, that's belonging. And so I just want to offer, Maya Angelou's quote is great. It's very beautiful. But what we're being offered as believers is more beautiful still. She belongs everywhere and nowhere. What does she say? Let's read it. You only are free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high. The reward is great. You only are free when you realize you belong one place. You belong every place. One place. With the vine. When you belong with the Father, you do come to belong everywhere. Because he is the giver of all things. And so you can walk into any room that he has appointed you to go to, and it's yours. It belongs to you because he made the path. And because it's his room. Right? But I will say this, she's right. The price is high. The reward is great. I used to say to Brian, I'm like, can't I just have a place where I look like everybody else? Just a place, just one place where I belong. It's like, you belong with me. And I do. I do belong with him. I'm grateful for that. But the more I walk this thing out, and maybe you resonate with this, the more I feel the otherness, right? He and I don't always feel the same way about things or see eye to eye. The kids and I don't. Even my dearest friends, and I have the best friendships. I still feel my otherness. And it's painful at times. Just want to be like everybody else. Someone spoke a word over me. You're a bridge builder, Anna. You're always building bridges. I told Brian, I'm like, I feel like I'm just being torn apart sometimes because I see this camp over here and I see that camp over there. And I see the beauty in each one and they're so far apart. I want to draw them together. And instead I'm just getting stretched to breaking, trying to hold these realities at the same time. How can it all be true? Right? And I'm not talking about like, different religions or anything like that. Like there is a truth. There is one truth. But there are these aspects of beauty and goodness in so many places. And I want to draw it all in and I want to put it all in one little box. It doesn't go there. It doesn't go in one little box. Right? But I just want to look like the other folks. The truth of the matter is, none of us do. We're not supposed to. If we're truly walking out our purpose, we are supposed to look different. So friend, I want to invite you. Be who you were called to be all the way through. Let there be a little difference, a little color. If it's been a little while where you're like, I don't really like that, come to think of it. To be totally honest, that's not how I enjoy spending an evening. I actually really like that author or that thinker or that podcast. Try it on. Be other, that you might truly belong. Okay? All right. How'd we do? Send me a message. Let me know what came up for you. Like I said, there's a lot to this conversation. Bottom line invitation is, may we be so devoted to belonging with the Father, to being with him, that we would be willing to be other than anybody else, to play our part in this body of Christ to its fullest, to belong no place but with him. And through that belonging, we belong every place. To be willing to pay the high price of separateness from those we love, of being different colored and shaped and sized and structured than those around us. The reward is great, friend. All right. Now go forth and belong with and to the Father. As always, especially here, you've got this because he's got you.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again, and never forget, you've got this because he's got you.